All right. Hey, Scott from the Llama Lounge. How are you doing, man?
Jerry, I feel like I'm in my home away from home.
You are, in a sense. Like, you
Yeah.
may officially, with this segment, have tied with the most appearances on Beyond the Rut. That's in the month
Well,
of April. Okay.
I don't, it's only the second, right? Yeah. I
Yeah.
don't, I, I don't, I don't believe in ties, Jerry.
All right. We'll have to get you on again.
Oh, we need some overtime. We
There
need
we
a, we
go.
need a, we need a victory. Yeah. I
And
feel
then
like I've spent more time in your walk-in closet studio than anybody else. So
with my face behind your head on the green screen. That is
that's
awesome.
right.
So those who are watching this on YouTube, I guess you get double dose of Jerry. Kind of a before and after. It's kind of sad. Jerry before cake is
Yeah.
behind Scott. Jerry after cake is what you're watching live right now on this video.
And you know, what's funny is that wasn't planned at all. That just happens to be my background all the time.
All the time. That is awesome. I love
That's how I get through life with Jesus and Jerry.
There
So
we go. The way it should be. You know what? That would be an awesome. If I ever became a pastor, that would be the podcast I need to do.
yeah.
Jesus and Jerry
Yeah.
and you. Which kind of leads us right into what you and I wanted to talk about in this episode, because Beyond the Rut, which is a show about sharing encouraging stories and practical tools to help you pull yourself out of the rut and live a life worth living. There are really like 5 circles of our life, or 5 areas or domains of our life that I feel need to be addressed, if
Mhm.
not in balance, at least addressed, so that you have that life that can be sustained, that's worth living. And the very first thing on that list of 5 F's is faith. And then, of course, that's
Yeah.
followed by family, fitness, finances, and future possibility. And I've put that in order with a purpose, because even though like fitness is kind of that centerpiece around like physical fitness, mental health fitness, spiritual
Spiritual.
fitness, that is kind of like the core that allows you to have that good, balanced family life. Your finances are aligned with what you want and what you are. Your outlook on future possibility is positive, growth minded. But then at the forefront, to kick it all off, really has to be our faith. And then for you and me, it's the Christian faith. I know
Yeah.
for others, it might be something else, and we're okay with that. We're not going to judge you. We're
Oh, I
still
might.
love you. uh, but we're just sharing from our perspective as followers of Christ why faith is that first and foremost thing. And so I know with our show, I've mentioned a number of times, I have a tool out there called Measure It to Make It. And one of the first things that you got to do is define what success looks like. And really to get to that point, you got to define what matters most to you. And
Right.
to get to that point, you got to know what you believe in. And so that's why for me, faith is that first and foremost thing. So Scott, like, why is that the case for you?
Well, Jerry, I'll tell you just sort of my testimony, if that's okay. A little background. I grew up in church, right? So we grew up Baptist, so I was, I guess, considered a Baptist brat, right? So
Yes.
I grew up in church. I was saved at the age of 13.
Okay.
Now, the years between 14 and 18, there was no walk with Christ there. It was out in the world, right? As soon as I got the opportunity to get a part-time job and expanded my friendships,
Hmm.
because when you're a young kid, your friends are your neighborhood friends. But when you get into high school, your friends are coming from all over the place,
Yeah.
right? So my influences overtook my walk, right? So I was greatly influenced by friendships and music and behaviors and activities that if I were to divulge, I'd be embarrassed to divulge everything that I took part in at that age group. But I also realized that not only was my walk with Christ being affected, but my relationships with my family,
Wow.
right? All of a sudden there's this strained relationship with your parents who have raised you, have taken care of you, are doing everything they can to make sure you have everything you need in life. And of course, it's a teenage thing, right? We probably all go through that as teenagers. But for me, when I graduated high school, my options were very few and far between, right? Because of the life I led. And I was never diagnosed with the ADHD, but I can pretty much tell you, having seen it in other people, I know what it looks like. I know what it
Yeah.
feels like. So I told myself, well, when I graduate high school, it's either jail or retail, and I'm not really built for either one of them. So I joined the military. And the worst thing you can do to an 18-year-old who's lost is tell them to join the military.
Yeah, right.
Not because there's no opportunity for them there, but all of a sudden you're surrounded around by a bunch of other 18 to 23-year-olds who are full of hormones, full of angst, full of attitude.
Mm-hmm.
And so for years and years and years, I was away from church and I was away from my walk. But when I realized
he's a very gung-ho, tough guy, kind of, even in the Air Force.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Even in the Air Force. Oh yeah. Absolutely. And we're kind of, we have programs, and again, I've been retired for 7 years now, but we had programs that were like resilience programs where you kind of be self-sustaining and how to get through things. But it wasn't until after I got out of the military, 7 years ago, where I started realizing, like, man, as a father, right, I really need to start being that leader in the house, that spiritual leader in the house. And so that's when we got back in church, and I started realizing everything that I had been missing over the past, 30 years or so, right? All the heartache, all the money issues, all the pain and suffering could have been avoided. Maybe not 100%, but if I had just continued with my faith and continued with my walk, I could have really been prepared for all that stuff that took place over those years, or I could have avoided a lot of it to begin with. Yeah. And so as the leader in my house, as the spiritual leader in my house, my goal is that my kids don't run into that same path that I ran into, that they understand that faith comes first before anything else. Yeah. And it's amazing. You and I are both in the training and development world. And I know how often I will quote Lencioni or quote Covey and quote all these other great leadership and training authors, Maxwell. But when I look at the Bible, written, over 2,000 years ago, if you're really reading it, those concepts are already there. Yeah. Like, these aren't new concepts, right?
Well, like these servant leadership. I quote a lieutenant I worked with in Kosovo. Sure. But when I think about where did that concept really come from, and what he said was, as a leader, Jerry, as an officer, a platoon leader, there are 3 things I do to make sure that this mission gets taken care of, whether I'm there or not. And that is, I never mess with my soldiers' meals, their money, or their mail. Yeah. And my job, other than planning the routes and everything, is to make sure that those 3 things are taken care of for everybody, even if that means I have to go get it myself. And, it's kind of like when Jesus washed the feet of his disciples. That was something that people would expect we do for him. If he's the prince, the king of kings, then we should be washing his feet. He's like, nah, let me suit up here and let me wash your feet. Let me get on my knees and get in the dirt and wash your feet. And so there's that. And now backpedaling a little bit, or backtracking, not backpedaling, but backtracking.
We're doing like a Quentin Tarantino type thing now. We're all over the place.
A Royale with cheese. Oh man, that sounds good. We should have both had breakfast before we did that.
We should have.
So backtracking a little bit, you talked about how much life seemed to be different because you were a Christian in your family life. Why is it you think that your Christian faith, your Christian journey made that difference? Like, what would life have been like without it compared to with it?
I'll tell you. So we're not a perfect family, right? We're just like any other family in the United States of America. But I tell you, we have so much more peace and grace with ourselves in this family than we did 5-7 years ago. We have more of a stronger bond than we did 5 or 7 years ago. Like my kids play video games. Yeah. I am not a video game guy at all. Now I'm an old dude, so my kids are obviously much younger, so I'm just not interested in that stuff. But when we sit down and do a Bible study together, and I'm able to actually show them what the Bible says, even though it's written so long ago, how they can apply it to their lives now, we're developing bonds there, and bonds that we never had in the past. In the past, I love my kids to death, but in a lot of ways I felt they were just superficial, because like, what's the real connection other than being blood and being, their father? There was really no shared experiences, no shared sort of, common things that we hobbies or anything like that. Like, again, I don't do video games. I don't do, whatever they do.
Yeah.
But that's something that I've learned, that as the leader of the household, the spiritual leader of the household that the father should be, that's something that I should be taking control over, and I should be the forefront of that. And so that's helped us grow as a family together. And so now if we have a challenge, or we have any type of differences, we can go, hey, remember we did that Bible study,
Yeah.
or hey, remember here's what the Bible says about this. We have that common thread that we can always rely on to solve problems together. And so it doesn't sound like it's just mom or dad telling them no for any reason, for our own reasons. It's because it's something that it's biblical, and it's something that is important.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, my kids, I'm so blessed and so thankful to God for my kids, the way they are now compared to the way I was when I was their age. My oldest just turned 15 Thursday. My youngest will turn 13 in August. And for the longest time, it scared the heck out of me that they were getting that age, because I remember what I was like at that age.
Yeah.
But they are, so we're heavily involved in our church, and they are involved in ministries as young kids. They're ushering, they're doing bus ministry. They both want to be preachers and pastors when they get older. And so and I owe it all to God and to our walk, because I wouldn't have been able to do that on my own,
Yeah.
And so, but it takes that concerted effort of everyone being on the same page and putting faith first to get us to that point where we are more content and more at peace with our lives.
Yeah. I was amazed by just in my own journey as a Christian dad and a Christian husband, like, when you hear like you need to be the spiritual leader in your home, you're thinking it is leading Bible studies. It is being the theological expert in the house. And I think the thing I learned, because I didn't become a Christian until 2005, maybe 2006. So 2 to 3 years after I came home from Operation Iraqi Freedom. And so, I mean, I had an idea of the Bible. I'd done some Bible studies when I was in high school and middle school, but I was that guy that always tried to get Christians to unfollow God, because I was Mr. Smarty Pants, and the Bible says this, and it contradicts itself like this, and it does this. And I'm like, oh, I never knew that. Or they're like, well, I think you're seeing that out of context, Jerry. And of course, now I know the context. It's in the context of Jesus, and you're like, oh.
You can't just pull that one verse. You have to
right?
actually read the 2 or 3 before it and the 2 or 3 after it to actually get the context of what's going on.
Like over time, from like 2005 to today, I think the number 1 and number 2 lessons I've given my kids about the Bible and about Jesus and following Christ is, number 1, humility. And I think more than anything else, I mean, if I could track how many times I had to humbly go to my children and say, Jacob, Emma,
I'm sorry.
Yesterday I said this, this, and this, which totally countered the rule that we had as a family. And then I just put my foot down as the dad said, you do it because, and I'm sorry, you were right. I was wrong. And I wanted to get my way.
Yeah.
And, and having the humility to do that was hard, because I wanted to just be like, oh, I'm the dad. This is my house, my rules. And like, that was me. But the right thing to do, like when I really got humble, was I had to now go to my kids and be humble, because what's at stake isn't whether or not they respect me under my own roof. What's also at stake is, what kind of parents do they become? And not only that, what kind of kids do they become for me when I grow up? Like, are they going to want to stick around and be a part of my life? Or are they going to be the kind of person that looks to me as an example to follow or an example to avoid? So those are more of the selfish reasons. But ultimately, what kind of parents are they going to become? What kind of example are they going to have to follow? And, if they're likely to repeat what I do, then humility.
We're doomed.
Yeah, right. It's like, oh, good luck, grandkids.
Well, and I'm the same way. And I admit it, you could nickname me Short Fuse, because I there are times where I'm like, but I tell you, not trying to brag or anything, but that's my temper has really been subsided over the past several years, because I've just learned to, and every once in a while I still get annoyed, but I try to practice what Jesus taught, and follow his example. And again, just like you said, I think about that. I'm like, what are my kids going to be like when they have kids? Like if I'm at them and in their face, are they going to do the same thing with their kids? Like, I wouldn't want that on my grandkids. So I have to set the example now, right?
Yeah.
Not wait till later. Yeah.
And the second lesson was around grace. It's like,
Yeah.
If we believe in a faith that says it's all about grace, second chances, it doesn't matter what you've done. If you believe Jesus is your savior and he can cleanse you of your sins and reconnect you to God, then that's it. It doesn't matter if you're a murderer, rapist, somebody who cheated on their wife, somebody who cheated on their taxes, somebody who once, didn't tip their waiter. It's like, once you believe that thing, though, you're covered.
The door's always open.
Yeah. And so if that's the case, then if I also remember where I came from, like what I was like when I was 13, 15, 17, then I have to kind of express that grace to my own kids and give them room to make mistakes, to learn from them, so there's still natural consequences they've got to go through. But they also know that it's not the end of the world if they fail. And the byproduct of that, not only, teaching them the faith of Christ and the grace from Christ by doing that, it's kept the door open in the relationship with my kids. And I don't know if that's
right.
Yeah.
No, and it makes it, like I said earlier, what are our commonalities? What are things that we are into? Right. Like we don't, I'm not into their style. I'm not into their video games or whatever, but we can be into the Bible together, right? We can be into shared stories as far as, hey, what's your favorite chapter in the Bible? What's your favorite, Bible story? It's funny. Like I mentioned earlier, it's like both my kids, they want to be preachers when they grow up. They want to.
Nice.
And not too long ago, we had we had a New Year's Eve party at church. Not what you think it is, right? It wasn't actually a party, but we had a New Year's Eve service, and there's about 3 or 4 teenage kids at the church that they want to go to Bible college after they graduate high school, and our pastor said, "All right, I'm going to give you guys a chance to preach a message, right? You guys each get 5 minutes to put together a message." I've had more joy sitting down with my son, and we're like, what do we want to talk about? Well, what kind of message do you want to preach? You only got 5 minutes, so let's make it impactful. I got more joy out of that shared moment, helping him, sort of write out his sermon. I love watching him play football, right? I love watching my kids play sports. I love when they get great report cards. But that event, I felt like that was the closest shared experience of something that we've ever worked on together. I know some people, some dads would do model cars with their kids, or they'll do woodworking with their kids. That's just not how we are in our house. But sitting down and we're opening the Bible, and I'm like, well, what's the story you want to talk about? And how do you want to relate it to today? Working that out and working out the flow of the sermon and the different verses that he's going to utilize. That was so incredibly moving for me because one, it's a bonding moment, but two, it's a lot deeper than building a model car or teaching them how to throw a baseball or teach them how to ride a bike, right? It's a lot more purposeful, that moment.
Nice. Now, somebody who isn't doing something like this currently and they're inspired right now, like, I want to do that with my kids. Should they just go grab Bibles right now and sit down and say, all right, guys, we're going to now do a 5-part study of the book of John. Let's go.
Let's start with Job.
Job. That's a nice long one for everybody. We're going to get boils and blisters.
Yeah. Wait, why are we doing this? No, there are a lot of different devotions out there. There's family devotions out there. Because I'll be honest, Jerry, I'm not a Bible scholar, right? Sometimes people ask me, what's your favorite verse? I don't know. It changes. It changes depending on what I happen to be reading that day.
Yeah.
What's your favorite Bible story? I don't know. anything that's in red letters. We use red letter edition Bible. So anything Jesus said, that's my favorite story. But I would look at doing like a family devotion. There's different books out there, different resources out there that are geared towards family. And we haven't done it in a while, but we need to get back into it. But we would open up the family devotion. It would talk about, a family subject, family issue, and then it would give some verses that you can go read the Bible. And I would have each kid, we have 4 kids in our house, and each of them would read a verse.
Yeah.
And they are sharing their insight into it and how they understand it. And then we can, coach them on it if they're picking up the way it's intended, or if they're right on point or not. But that's that bonding moment. And I tell you, kids love it. My niece lives with us. She's 5 years old. And if we go some period of time without doing it, she's like, Uncle Scott, can we do Bible study? And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. We haven't done it in a while because we got crazy, hectic schedules. But I would start with that. I would really start with that. And then also getting in a good church too, finding that time to come together as a family and find a good church to go to is important, especially at younger ages. Because I know the influence that I had, and I know the influence that my kids have. They go to, they go to the same school that your kids went to, right? And so you know what's out there.
Oh
yeah. And so and sometimes you got to be worried not about the influence from the kids, but the influence from the teachers.
Oh.
And so our example should come first, right? And the Bible example should come first. So I think making Christ the preeminence in everything that we do, right?
Yeah, it's got to be authentic. It's like if the only time your family sees you being a Christ follower is on Sunday morning when it's time to pile into the car, and not even then. Like you're piling into the car, it's like, F you, Chun, get in the car, and I'm gonna whip you in the next Tuesday. And then like you're arguing with your wife all the way to church, and then all of a sudden church is there. You're like, oh, hi, brother. How are you? Good to see you. Yes, we're living the life here. We're so blessed. And then you get back in the car in church. F this guy for cutting me off in the parking lot. You're like, this is the church parking lot.
No, but honestly, I'll tell you, Jerry, we're not perfect people. Right? We have those moments. And no one can be perfect, right? If you compare yourself to the standard, which is Jesus Christ, man, we fail miserably every single time.
Exactly.
But yeah, kids, it needs to be authentic. It needs to be, and so for me, like especially me and my wife, we took on a couple ministries at church. Like on Wednesday nights, we have Wednesday night services, and so we do a kids club. And so throughout the week, my wife is coming up with games and activities that are scripturally based and biblically based games and activities. So we're filling up our time during the week preparing for these ministries. Mm-hmm. We lead a college and career age ministry. We call it the Navigators, because what a perfect name for young kids, 18 to 20 something years old, that are trying to navigate Christianity and college and a career. And so we're spending throughout most evenings throughout the week, we're spending time in Bible study, putting together messages, putting together those type of things. And so our kids see it too, right? And it's great when I come downstairs or when I come out of the bedroom and I'll see my son's laptop on the dining room table and his Bible right next to it.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, what are you doing? I'm thinking about my next sermon, what I'm going to do it on. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Like, I'm not prompting him to do that. But he's seeing it, right? We're setting that example. He's seeing it not only through us, but especially through the church that we are part of. And so that kind of puts you at ease a little bit, right? Because again, if I look back to when I was 15 years old, my parents wouldn't have seen me at the dining room table with a Bible or a school book, because I was absent. I was out in the world. I was partying it up and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But I think going back to putting faith first, that's what's leading to where we're at. Yeah, because we're making it a priority. I mean, as a matter of fact, when we get off with this recording, we're heading up to the church, because our church, we go out on Saturdays and we pass out flyers and we knock on doors from time to time, and we want to set the example for our kids. Yeah, you're going to be a part of this. We're gonna grow the kingdom, and it doesn't happen by just wishing and hoping. I mean, you actually got to get out there and put boots to the street. So, and it's funny, when I was their age and we did it as a kid, I loathed it. I hated it. I was like, this is so embarrassing. We're knocking on people's doors, and my kids go out there eager. They go out there excited. They're, it's just, it's just incredible.
Yeah.
Just incredible.
There's, this is a little side note, but I mean, I was just thinking about it when you're talking about volunteering alongside your kids. So this becomes just a part of what they do. Mm-hmm. There's a organization out there called the Search Institute. And they've got decades worth of data they've collected on 40 developmental assets for youth that build resilience, reduce at-risk behaviors or high-risk behaviors. And so it's divided into two categories: external assets, internal assets. The internal assets, you and I as parents have no influence over.
Yeah.
Those are just in them, and they develop it on their own, based on what they see and decide and so on. But the external assets are the things we can provide them in their environment. So things like open communication between parent and child, or adult and child. Very big. So the kids who have that kind of connection with adults, that they felt safe, they were safe, they could talk about the world and question things, huge. Which comes from being able to have things like Bible study. It's kind of a byproduct. But there are there's like 4 others. They're all connected to like church in some way.
Yeah.
Community, service, seeing a positive environment of other people who are like-minded. It was very interesting. Like, you could look through that list of 20 external assets, and at least 5 of them were linked to church in some way. And you're like, wow, just by going every week and being plugged in at home every day, everything we do, you're adding at least 5 developmental assets. And this leads to things like decreased drug and alcohol use, abuse specifically, decreased like promiscuity. So that reduces the risk of STDs, teen pregnancy, sexual assault, because you're doing less of the at-risk behaviors. And now sexual assault still is in the purview of the perpetrator. Like, it's them that they're the ones at fault. But as far as perpetrators of sexual assault, there's a tie in there as well. Like, you're less likely to commit crimes if you have more developmental assets. And then on the positive side, you're more likely to be in a leadership role and succeed in your career and your finances and your family life. The more assets you have while you're growing up. So,
all very biblically based, by the way, Jerry.
Right? Yeah. So it's just neat that there's like data out there on the social scene, in the family scene, through the Search Institute, independently done, that just happens to connect a lot of those dots. So.
Yeah. Well, and I will tell you, obviously, the more free time you have, the more trouble you can get into, right? Oh, yeah. So there's a quote by Charles Spurgeon, and I believe it goes, the idle man tempts the devil to tempt him. Right. So it's like, if you are not involved with your kids and you're just letting them do whatever, you have no idea what's going on in their lives, by nature, our sin nature, they're going to gravitate towards those things, those worldly things that, like, ooh, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to experiment with this, I want to experiment with that. And even as adults, that idleness, that kind of like mentality to, like, I'm not going to be working on anything or pursuing anything. You allow influences to bring you down. In our case, what we try to do is be as active as we can in their spiritual life. So if it's Bible study, or even if it's at church, like trying to get involved as much as we can at church, because again, like you said, they're in a community, and they're in a shared community where it's not perfect people, but it's people that are pursuing the same thing. And the alternative to that is a bunch of, people that grow up and say, oh, I can't adult today, or, woe is me, the world is a hard, tough place to live in.
Yeah.
However, if they're learning resilience through Paul, reading the books that Paul wrote, and they learn about resilience, learning about how to treat people and be compassionate and loving, which is what is written throughout the Bible. They're getting so much more, I guess, I don't want to say hacks, but so much more skills and understanding of how to navigate the world than they would if they were just left onto their own devices.
Yeah. You learn to do things like surrender what you absolutely have no control over.
Yeah.
And once you do that, you're like, okay, what are the things I do have control over? Where's my leap of faith in this situation? And like, well, I can do that, whatever that is. I can pick up the phone and call somebody and ask for help. I can go to a website and learn what it takes to apply for an academic program that will get me to the next level of my career. I can go to a marriage retreat with my wife and unplug from everything for a couple of days and focus on my wife. There's a solution out there. And I think when you surrender, you surrender to things you absolutely cannot control. I mean, I think, is it the addiction program, the Alcoholics Anonymous, the Serenity Prayer?
Sure.
Give me the strength to let go of the things I can't control and embrace the ones I can. I'm paraphrasing, but it's something like that. Yeah. Now, we've been talking a lot about the impact of faith on family, because for you and I, family has been a big part of our lives and a big goal for us in terms of what success looks like. But more broadly, we wanted to kind of chat a little bit about why is it important to put faith first before like our goals, our specific goals.
Sure.
And this is kind of a cool tie-in because I have this like tool, Measure It to Make It. That's all about setting goals. But I'll
download the tool, people. Download it.
Shameless plug. BeyondTheRut.com/goals. But listen to this episode first and then think about it and then download that tool and you'll see where it connects. But why is it that, what is the benefit of when your faith is first and foremost, then you start establishing your goals from there?
Yeah, I don't want to say that everything falls into place if you have your faith. No, but I will say your priorities are usually pretty clear, right? Because sometimes we have goals, and they are not necessarily goals that are best for us, but goals that we think this is what I should have, right? I should have this level of paying job. I should have this type of car. I should have this amount of body fat. I should, these are the a lot of goals that people sort of set for themselves. But without guiding principles and values, those goals are meaningless.
Yeah.
So for me, having faith in Christ and having a walk with Christ outweighs my job.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, but I'll tell you what, it gets me through my job. It gets me through my job. And so for me personally, putting faith first, that's the most important thing, right? Because guess what, Jerry? None of us get out alive.
What?
None of us get out alive. We can have all the money in the world. We can have the best physique in the world. We can have the perfect job. But at the end of the day, life is just a vapor. And if we're not walking in our faith and we're not trying to do our best to bring others to heaven, to try to bring as many people to heaven as we can, our time spent on earth is useless. It's worthless. But I tell you, I have more when I'm going through something that's troubling me at work, or I'm going through some sort of challenge at work. I can open up a Bible verse that's going to get me through the day, right? I can open up something that Paul wrote about trials and challenges that gets me through the day.
Yeah.
And I can go, oh, you know what? I got something bigger than all this. Whatever's going on, I got something that's bigger than all this on my side. I'm on the winning side, so to speak, right? And that it motivates me and inspires me to go, you know what? I can go through this now. And it really puts things in its perspective, whether that goal is actually appropriate or if it's something that something that I really need to be focusing on.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what we talked about earlier is the Bible is full of all these lessons on how to be better at your job, how to be better with finances, how to be better with your family. And so if you focus on that first and study that first, it helps you reach these other goals that you might have.
Yeah.
Right.
I love that. And it reminded me of an earlier episode that I recorded with somebody named Vincent Pugliese from Total Life Freedom Podcast.
Mm-hmm.
He's coming out with a book pretty soon. And one thing he talks about in that book is generous goals. So
Mm-hmm.
it's goals with other people in mind, serving
Mm-hmm.
others in mind. And when you look at, what is it the Christian life is called to? It's serving others. I mean,
Yes.
serving God by serving others. And, when your goals are aligned with your faith, you're also writing these generous goals. I want to give this much to this charity to change the world in this way to glory God. It's
Sure.
like, wow, that's pretty bold. And
Yeah.
if you keep it to yourself, that's awesome. Because now you're not just bragging about like, I'm going to give $1 million away. It's like, now you just earn $1 million and you give it away. It's like, I did that for God. Check.
Yeah, absolutely. So we we support a lot of missionaries at our church. And so it's like, I get I'll get a pay raise, right? And it's like, my wife and I look at each other. I'm like, how much more we can give to John Hernandez, who's down in the Amazon. Like this is great. We can up our support for this missionary, or we can help, help build whatever wing that we need to add on to the church now. And so, I like money, Jerry. I like having bills paid. I like having low to little to no to little debt. But I also like to be able to give back and support other people who are serving God.
Yeah, same here. I think the thing that hurt me the most in the last decade and some change was just struggling financially and not being able to, take a friend in for a night or two who needed it, or to, write a check for somebody in need, or to give to a cause that was doing a big thing. It's like, oh man, I know $1,000 would make a big impact. I can do 5. And, and it's like, but I know on my heart, giving 1,000 was the target. That's the thing that I know I needed to give, because that was what was on my heart. For somebody else, it might be 10 grand. For somebody else, $5 was the thing they were called to do. But it would just pain me that it was like, here I am with a calling to give this much and I don't even have it, but I can give 5, and there you go. I'm a good person, and then off I go. And the reason why I say it is not because of the dollar amount, folks. It's because the thing on my heart was to give a certain amount, and I couldn't, and that's what would bother me. And it's just, again, having your faith drive your goals and what your definition of success is, I believe helps set guardrails for you as well.
Sure.
So now you can achieve or pursue success, and you're not compromising your faith, your family, or your health. And because you've identified what matters most to you through your faith. So this has been great, man. Now you're on the Llama Lounge through Llama Leadership. It's a team of 5 folks, all Air Force. 2 of you are retired. Tell us more about Llama Leadership, where folks can find you, and then let's plug Lima Charlie Network while we're at it.
Yeah, absolutely. So Llama Lounge, I'll start off with Llama Leadership. It was a group of 4 of us that we started back in 2018 as a blog site, posting articles on everything from faith, family, finances. No, I'm still in Jerry's thunder here.
I know.
But really a lot of the topics were similar to that, like leadership specific topics, family, life, learning, and leadership is our tagline. And then in 2020, like everybody and their mom, we started a podcast, and that's been going pretty consistently. We post once a week. Actually, no, we post more than once a week now. So we have our main podcast comes out on Tuesdays, and then we have some extra bits and pieces that come out throughout the week as well. Some little short lessons and snippets from our main podcast. So that's been going for 2 years, pretty strong. And we, our team, along with Jerry and some other veterans, are part of what's called the Llama Charlie Network, where we support each other through different endeavors. We kind of boost each other's push throughout the world. Like we'll advertise for Beyond the Rut, and Beyond the Rut will advertise for Llama Lounge and Llama Leadership. And who else is on there? There's Noble Gibbons.
Yeah, from EQ Gangster.
He's the EQ Gangster. He's an Army veteran. There's Jay Lee, who is on the Live Free podcast. He's a Navy veteran. We have Trip Bodenheimer from the
Shadows
Beyond the
podcast.
Shadows podcast, Air Force guy. What else? Am I missing anybody?
Shay Sparks from
Jay Sparks.
Power of
Yes.
Investing in People. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So it's a great, what I love about Lima Charlie Network is every day you get something new, right? So if you are a committed podcast listener and you're looking for a fresh look every single day of the week, check out the Lima Charlie Network, and you'll get a new podcast every single day of the week, geared towards some of the stuff that we talked about today, and also some other things. So it's just really good stuff.
Nice. Scott, as always, there we go.
Yes.
Great to have you on the show. And of course, I mean, we'll see you again because, well, we're in the Lima Charlie Network together. So
That's right.
yeah, we got to keep that Marco Polo chat on its toes with the random old men. How does this thing work?
Yeah, that's you and me. I think everybody else has that down pat. You and I are the ones that are like constantly staring eyeball to the camera, like, what is that guy doing?
Oh, this thing's on. Oh, hi guys. Stop. How do I delete this? I had one video that was just like that. How do I delete the previous one? And then the third one. Don't worry, I figured it out. Thank you. They're like, what? Why does he? Man. But anyway, great having you on. And
thanks, Jerry.
Yeah, we'll see you on the next one.
Yes, sir.
All right.
God bless. Good seeing you, Jerry.